Hello and welcome back to Season 2 of Not Your Forte Podcast. Boy, has it been too long since we've last met, isn't it?
Oh, man. You're not kidding. It's been, probably 5 weeks?
It's been a long time. A lot has happened in between, but I am beyond excited to start out our second season of this show and everything. In case any of you listeners have forgotten, we're a music education podcast geared towards helping music ed undergrads survive and thrive throughout their undergrad and also just get them ready to go out and teach in the real world. Going on kind of this week, we're going to just discuss a little bit about kind of what Season 2 is going to hold on, and we're going to get back to discussing how to kind of get through that first couple weeks of school again and stuff, and we're going to dive into a little bit about should you get involved into organizations or anything like that, what are the pros, what are the cons and everything, and we're going to have a fun time.
And just reacclimating to life in general, because I know for us from the professor's side, we have to wear grown-up clothes again. You know, we can't just come into our office in sweatshirt and sweatpants and just get work done. It's like, oh, I've got to put on my big boy pants now.
One of the funniest things is I was here most of break in Manhattan. I would come to McCain like a good music student does to come and practice, and I'd see Dr. Ward. He's the director of the School of Music, Theater, and Dance here. He's in shorts and a T-shirt because they're repainting the offices and stuff, and I'm just like, it's beyond weird to see Dr. Ward in that really casual attire.
Absolutely. So, but at the same time, you know, it's awfully dead during the breaks, you know, and so it's always fun to see that vitality come back to a building the first days of school. So.
Yeah, it's super fun. First day back, you get to see all the people who a lot you haven't seen in a while and stuff. I live in Manhattan year round, and it's been a weird kind of winter break, actually, because this is my first break to where I haven't been working at a job or anything. So it's just been kind of I've had two and a half weeks of just looking forward to the semester and getting ready for this semester and trying to get things organized and figured out. Not to mention just a lot of fun over break and stuff. The marching band, we were able to go to the bowl trip with K-State. We went to Memphis for the Liberty Bowl. Unfortunately, the Cats did not win.
Had a little bit of a downer game, but, I mean, for the most part, I still maintain, I know this isn't a sports podcast, but I still maintain we make those first two catches. That's a completely different ball game.
Most definitely. But overall, the trip was fun. And if you're in a marching band or anything and you're at a football team who does go to bowl games, you just know it's one of the most fun experiences you can ever have. And if you're looking at joining a college marching band, I highly recommend it. It's unforgettable experiences that really will just continue to stick with you.
Absolutely. And I would say, you know, if we've got any high school students that are listening to this and trying to decide, you know, is music ed the way that I want to go, you know, there's a big difference between your high school marching band and a college marching band. No matter where you go, if you go to a large, highly competitive marching band, it's going to be different. You know, going to a college marching band. And if you come from a very small program, it's going to be different. So just understanding that when you come into this process, a lot of the experiences that you have, be it music ed, be it choir, be it band, be it orchestra, they're just different.
There's a certain connection and tradition to a lot of college things that
Absolutely.
are just beyond phenomenal. How was your Christmas?
It was too fast. You know, we talk about wanting to get the semester started back up again, but, I mean, we packed so much into those 5 weeks that we're off that, I mean, it's amazing how quickly it goes. You know, I went back and visited family and friends for a few days in Oklahoma, and then we had to get back early because my daughter's on a traveling volleyball team. So we have been in Lawrence and Kansas City and Hutch, and then we've got upcoming trips to Omaha, Denver, St. Louis, and
you've
then
had a few
Wichita.
miles, aren't you?
Yeah, so I mean we're moving around a lot, so that's been a lot of fun.
Oh, I'm sure. And I mean, we talked a little bit. We're definitely not a sports podcast, far from it, but it's been a fun break. If anyone in the area is Chiefs fans or anything, Super Bowl, it's something I never thought I'd see in my life or anything. So that was a really nice punctuation to the end of break and everything.
Absolutely. You know, and it goes back. I mean, we can tie this back into the music podcast in the way that just like, the Chiefs or the Royals, the sports are so important part of the culture that when you look at an athletic department, the music programs are such a vital portion of that athletic department. And so finding ways to give back to them is always great, whether, national anthem. And that goes for our music ed majors. Whenever you take your first job, performing the national anthem at all of the athletic events, that's going to be huge. Figuring out that those athletic events is the face of your program.
It's the biggest gateway to the community.
Absolutely. Yep. Just as a quick offshoot of that, that's a great way for you to begin thinking about funding your program too. Because when I taught, one of the things that we were able to negotiate was to get 50 cents of every $5 ticket sold to football and basketball games, because we brought the band to those games. And so, you think 50 cents a ticket, that's not too much. But consider this, that the very first game that we had every year, there were 24,000 spectators that came to our first football game every year.
Small town football is king a lot of the times, and really just creating a good relationship with your athletic director and the coaches in general, of being like, hey, this is something that we can work together to give all the students a really fantastic experience, because that's what it comes back to.
Absolutely.
So going on and stuff, we're going to talk a little bit about season 2. We're really excited for everything that we have to offer. Season 1 was definitely a huge learning experience for myself and Dr. Payne, from everything from figuring out the right mics to get for podcasting, figuring out GarageBand, everything, and just trying to run a podcast. And I'm extremely blessed to just have had like this learning experience and to continue doing it. And thank you so much to Dr. Payne for helping me out with this.
Absolutely. And keep the feedback coming, because I talk with directors. I've talked with high school directors, people that have listened to the podcast. Keep the feedback coming, because the more that we know what you all want as listeners and what you find valuable, we can add that in. We can tailor make this to what you need, because that's what this podcast is here for.
This is all about trying to benefit the listeners. We don't have a podcast unless we have listeners. And you ever have any questions or suggestions or anything, you can shoot us an email at notyourfortepodcast@gmail.com. That's our email, or message us via Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, whatever, and then we'll respond and maybe talk about it on the pod. We really love to just hear from you guys, because you guys are why we do it. But kind of getting back on track to just how the season's going to look, we got a wide variety of topics that we're going to look to cover that I'm just super excited to try to do. Some of them which will make music majors groan a little bit when they hear about it. Like we're going to talk a little bit about your aural proficiency.
Yay! That's one of my favorites.
Which is one many people just love to do. Everyone loves their solfege and sight singing and everything along those lines. Then we're also going to do a little bit more into professional development ideas. We're going to talk about like how to get your job and everything when you're applying. That's going to cover like interview techniques, building your resume and everything along those lines. Not to mention, we're also going to talk about building up your professional image and talk about creating a website, which is, you think it would be kind of like pretty straightforward and stuff, but there's a little bit to it and everything. And then just a variety of other topics, from performance anxiety to developing your teaching philosophy. And we're just going to have a really fun and unique semester here at K-State, here between Dr. Payne and I for the podcast, and we're just super excited for that.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully we'll be able to share more helpful tips and hints and how to navigate the waters that are being a music ed major.
Yeah, and not to mention, besides just the normal episodes of the podcast, which, by the way, the podcast after this week, we're going to be still stick to a bi-weekly schedule like we did last semester, but we're going to be coming out on Tuesdays. This one's clearly coming out on a Wednesday, but from that point on, we're going to be coming out on Tuesdays every other week. And then in addition to that, be on the lookout each Thursday for additional supplementary content. We're going to look to add a little bit more to our YouTube channel and share stuff via either Facebook or Instagram or whatever. Just try to be a little bit more active and providing more resources for you guys to better prepare for everything that Music Ed has to offer.
Excellent. Well, let's get started. Let's talk a little bit about how to reacclimate yourself to the semester, because the hardest part, outside of waking up.
Waking up is definitely the number one step to getting ready for the semester.
Is getting back into that routine. So, I mean, the biggest thing that I would say is set your routine up now and really, and this is going to sound bad, but force yourself to maintain that routine, even though some of your classes may not get into full swing until like the second week of classes. Make sure that you hold yourself to a routine. Yep. Schedule in those times, schedule in free time, schedule in practice time, schedule in all of those items that you know that you need to be successful. Get those scheduled in now and practice going through it. It's similar to financial literacy, like they say, well, once you don't have a car payment, then set aside a little bit of money each pay period to as if you were making a car payment, and you'll save up in the long run. It's the same way here with practice time and with homework time. If you set aside that time now and still have it function as that, it's going to pay a lot of dividends in the end.
And it, like Dr. Payne is saying about setting habits, one thing I'm going to try really hard this semester to work on is I wanted to get into a good habit of keeping a regular planner. I know I've in the past I've done really well with keeping like kind of a general calendar of I kind of know when things are happening and stuff, but sometimes I forget homework assignments or certain things happening in class that day. Like I know there's class happening, but sometimes I don't know what's happening in class. So I'm starting today and everything. I took time in the morning to write down all my classes, what's on the syllabus and stuff that's going to be due soon and everything, and just a general to-do list that I just keep checking throughout the day and check off. And
I think the important part there is making sure that you know yourself, because you have to understand the language that you use and the language of urgency that you use, so that you also know that if I primarily am a kinesthetic, I'm going to want to write it down on something physical. Writing it down on a tablet may not be helpful, but if I really function better with a tablet, then writing something down in a calendar isn't necessarily going to help me unless I have a calendar app that I can put that in and then give myself reminders electronically. So there's not one, surefire way to do this, but you have to know how you operate and you have to be honest with yourself and how you interact with your environment, because that's going to actually be the most effective.
And don't be discouraged by failure. I know I've tried this many times in many different ways of just trying to make sure I keep a consistent planner and stuff, and sometimes it doesn't work out, and then I'm just like, okay, what else? What can I try? What can I add to twist this up to where it is going to benefit me? So don't be afraid to try something new. Talk to your friends. Talk to your professors. They're going to have some great suggestions about things they do. And while it might not 100% work for you, you can take a little bit from there and a little bit from there and figure out what's the perfect cocktail that just makes it work right for you.
Absolutely. I think that's great advice.
And then kind of going on with your getting ready for the semester and everything and making sure you're successful is have a close relationship with your advisor. Make sure that you are exactly where you need to be and that you're on track.
Yeah, don't feel like you can't contact them. That's why your advisors are there. Your advisors are there to help you and to make sure that you're going to be successful. And in fact, these first few days of a semester are some of the busiest for advisors because there's so many questions to answer. So it's two-pronged, right? Number one, don't be afraid to contact your advisor, but also make sure that you understand that there's a little bit of leeway that we have to give those advisors those first couple days because they are so busy on getting everybody's email answered that we are going to get them answered. It may just take a little bit longer response time than normal because of the high volume. So that would be the biggest thing that I would say. And hopefully you have a regular conversation with your advisors to know what classes you need to be in. Especially if you're at smaller schools where one class is only offered every other spring or every other fall, making sure that you don't get out of sequence. That's typically where the biggest pitfalls come in. Or if a class is only offered in fall or spring and isn't offered in both, that's another pitfall area. So always, be proactive. Know what's on your schedule. Even if your advisor lays everything out for you, know what's on the schedule, know your limitations, and be your own advocate in those meetings.
Well put. And we're talking a little bit about pitfalls and stuff to try to avoid at the beginning of the semester. You can start planning recitals to go to now. For recital attendance is always something that people tend to forget about. I know I had plenty of friends who last semester who were getting ready to student teach are like, oh man, I got a lot of recitals to try to go to try to make it up. I know most schools are going to have a calendar of events already out on a website or wherever that it might be available. So go ahead, look at your calendar, and once you get your syllabus over the course of this week, figure out, it's like, okay, I can go to some recitals this week and just kind of plan it out already.
Absolutely. And I would also say to go back to episode 1 and really listen to a little bit, because we go into depth there a lot about how to plan and what to do, what to expect, because that ultimately is going to be the most beneficial. And so really thinking, and again, it comes back to, you have to know who you are as a person.
Yep.
And you have to understand, and you have to be honest with yourself. I know that this is going to happen every single semester, so I need to prepare for that by doing X. And if we can do that, then we're going to be successful. It's the same way in preparing for lessons. We know that I say, well, maybe I'm going to practice that in evenings. Well, I know that I'm tired when I get home, and I know that
I'm not an evening practice person. I am always a morning practice person. I just can't come here in the evenings to practice. I will wake up earlier to practice than I will stay up late.
And that's important to know about yourself. So whenever you're making schedules and you see an open time, think about yourself and be honest with yourself of, yes, I can get this stuff done during this open amount of time. And if you think there's a chance that you won't, don't schedule it there. But schedule something else that you know will work there, and then find another time slot to get the work done, because that's really the only way that scheduling is successful. And it's trial and error. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and things are going to pop up. So having plan B, plan C, plan D is always important as well.
And that's what life as a teacher is going to be. From everyone who I've talked to who's been out there and teaching, you have to have all the way from plans A through Z when working with your students, working with your administration, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know what a student's going to do. You never know what's going to pop up. So this is practice right now of kind of making sure you're organized and together right now. That's going to carry with you into your teaching career.
Absolutely. One of the other conversations you and I were having were involvement in organizations.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about that.
So personally for me, I have been, ever since high school, I try to get involved in as much as I can, for better or for worse. And I think for the most part, there's tons and tons of benefits in getting involved into whatever organizations you have on campus, whether it's NAFME, whether it's Phi Mu Alpha, Kappa Kappa Psi, Tau Beta Sigma, Sigma Alpha Iota, whatever music sorority fraternity there might be, or other professional development organizations. I think there's just beyond immense benefits for being a part of them. I've been involved with Kappa Kappa Psi, Phi Mu Alpha, and NAFME, and it's provided a lot of absolutely phenomenal experiences that helped me, one, grow as a person and grow as an educator through a variety of different opportunities I've gotten through them. Like I've traveled to both national conventions for Phi Mu Alpha and Kappa Kappa Psi, and at both those conventions, I was able to meet some great people in the field of music and music education, as well as just learn so much from the clinics they offered. Through Kappa, I was able to be a part of the National Intercollegiate Honor Band, and I got to be in an ensemble with with Professor Jerry Junkin from University of Texas, which is just such a phenomenal learning experience, not to mention a great musical experience too.
Still, one of the most impactful moments of my life was performing under Dr. Junkin. It was absolutely unbelievable.
And he has the best conductor eyebrows ever.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. And his gestures and the way that he's able to use facial expressions as a conducting tool is just unprecedented. I mean, it's unbelievable.
And just what he says during a rehearsal, you can just tell like the way he's thinking musically is just on such a high level, and it's super fun to be an ensemble with him. Then kind of going on with the organizational involvement, a really big aspect is you have opportunities for leadership positions, whether it's something big, whether it's something small. I've been involved in a variety of capacities with the organizations I've been in, and I find that these are some of the things that are going to help me when it comes to teaching and when it comes to applying for jobs and everything. Like I've had to plan large-scale barbecue for 350 plus members for our rookie day of our marching band camp, and the experience of planning an event that large is going to be something that I'm able to use for when I'm teaching and if I have to do something.
And I think that's the main thing that you want to look at is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Whenever you take your first job, what is the skill set that's going to be necessary to be successful? And then find organizations that will help you hone and develop those skills. So, for instance, for me, NAFME at that time, it was MENC Collegiate when I was an undergrad. It was important for me to be a part of that and to have leadership roles in that because NAFME, it's our voice on the hill.
Yep.
It's the only way that we can have impact legislatively, both at the state and the national level. And so being a part of NAFME was critical in that success. Being a part of Phi Mu Alpha had a professional side to it and also had the social side to it. There was a big reason for that sense of fraternity that was important.
You get some lifelong friends through some of these organizations you get involved in.
Absolutely, and leadership positions as well through all of those. And I was a member of Tau Beta Sigma, and again, that comes back to, I knew I was going to be a band director, and so the connections you developed through Tau Beta Sigma or Kappa Kappa Psi, and the function of the fraternities themselves being service-oriented for the band program, you got to see, I mean, I would not have been able to have so many experiences in just large event logistics, of being able to understand what it takes to put it on an event, bringing people onto campus or into a new environment and making that seamless. Those are skill sets that we just don't have time to teach during the school day. So you're not always going to get a logistics course for how to run a program in all of your music ed curricula. You're going to have that as a supplement somewhere else. And so sometimes these organizations provide that for you.
And you mentioned the connections. A lot of time with these organizations, they're nationwide, sometimes worldwide organizations, and you being a part of that organization means you're part of such a large network of musicians, music educators across the country. And any event you go to, whether it's your state music convention, you can find people who were a part of your organization. There's usually a pretty easy instant connection, and it's really great just to know that you have those kind of around the country. I know with Phi Mu Alpha, I've needed a place to stay, like when I've gone down to different states occasionally, and I asked via our national network, and I'm able to connect with people immediately and do something like that, which is just super cool.
Absolutely. But with all organizations, it comes down to one last consideration, and that's don't overextend.
Yep. Don't
commit yourself to so much that you can't give every single organization your 100% effort. Now, that means I can give 100% effort to several organizations, but if I'm in every organization, then it's going to be hard to be able, especially if I'm leadership in every single organization. Yep. So you have to look at what time is required, because at the same time you don't want to sell the organization short, and you want to make sure that the members of that organization are having the best experience possible. And if giving, 74% of your total output is not going to provide that, then it's okay to say no to a leadership position.
And that's actually, in my experience, something that I stepped back and I did. And we talk a lot on this podcast about just knowing yourself, and I stepped back from pursuing more leadership roles within one of my organizations, because I felt like I could both have a better opportunity to add to a different one, and I didn't want to like what Dr. Payne said. I didn't want to put like half of my effort into two things when I just know that if I were to try that, I would just wear myself completely thin, and I wouldn't be able to do that, and I'd bring down both organizations. So it's sometimes reflecting upon yourself and being mature about making a decision of like, hey, I want to leave it better than I found it, wherever it is, whatever it is, and I'm going to make the decision that's not just, it's not a selfish decision, but it's one that's going to benefit the entire organization, your fellow students.
Be your own best advocate. That's the best way that I can frame it. Because you might have a faculty sponsor come up and say, oh, you would be perfect for this position. Please put in for it. And if you don't feel that you can give your best, your 100% best, it's okay to say, thank you for the opportunity, but I need to pass this time. That's completely fine. It shows a level of maturity. It shows a level of introspection that principals look for.
And it's a lot better to say no if you know you can't do something than saying yes and then just crashing
or backing out. That's even worse. We get to the end and we say, oh, by the way, I can't do this. Well, now you've put that organization in a really bad predicament. So making sure that we keep that as well is really important.
Well, anyways, it's a little bit of a shorter episode this week. It's just kind of we're getting back. We're still getting acclimated to everything.
Absolutely. Today's the first day of class, and so I'm jumping between meetings, meeting with all sorts of students, getting their schedules all lined up, and making sure that everybody's on the right track, getting everybody enrolled, because sometimes our enrollment management is not always the most efficient, so trying to figure out how to make all that work is always important.
That's why Dr. Payne is the absolute best advisor. He gets it all done, and everyone gets it just right.
So it takes a little bit, but this first week is always kind of getting everybody back on track. So keep your heads up, keep pushing forward, know your limits, be yourself, and be your best advocate. And look forward to this semester. We're going to have a lot of great topics. I'm really excited, especially teaching philosophy resumes, getting your first job. Those are all great topics. If you haven't rated us, please rate us 5 stars. It's easier for people to find. And share with all of your friends. Go and share our posts on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of the social media platforms. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever podcasts are found. You can find us, Not Your Forte Podcast. Rate us 5 stars, and we will see everyone in 2 weeks.
Bye-bye.